Hello and welcome to another episode of the AIGA Design Podcast. My name is Lishan Huang, Senior Director of Learning and Programs here at AIGA, the Professional Association for Design.
Hello, everyone. I am Julia Donatello, Design Competitions and Event Manager at AIGA.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kinda, and I'm a graphic designer based in Belgium.
Wonderful. Kinda, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Let's just jump straight into things. Can you share a bit about your career in design so far? You actually started your training as an architect and shifted into graphic design. So I'd love to hear about that transition and also how your architectural background influences what you do in graphic design as well.
Thank you. I grew up in Syria. I was always fascinated by design and art and architecture and anything involved like creating. While I wanted to apply for art school, but that's like a long story, circumstances didn't allow me. So I chose architecture. That was like the closest thing to what I wanted to do. And when I started studying, I really loved it. But I realized like I was not drawn so much for like, larger buildings. Instead, I was more interested into like smaller scale projects like interiors. And after graduation, finding work in Syria was a bit challenging. And by a chance, I joined a team in an event where my role was to create a project, a visual identity. And the project won the first prize, and the visual was nominated for an award. And that event made me realize my passion for graphic design and that I could turn my passion into a career. So I decided to shift into graphic design. I started like working by day and like learning in evening. So I can like build my I can build my portfolio. I was lucky to be surrounded by like mentors, people who guided me through my journey. But like what I would say, architecture gave me a strong foundation in like problem solving and design thinking and creativity. And this approach, I think it's like a central in how I work in design, whether I'm developing identities, logos, anything. I think it helped me to think like structurally, giving me my work a sense of organization and purpose.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we'll explore more about that and in your practice. I also wanted to let our audience know too that at the conference, at the AIGA conference last year in 2024, you co-presented a session with your collaborators, Sally and Hala. You all also do archival work with a project called the Syrian Design Archive. We'll post a link to that session talk so our audience can check that out as well. But can you share with our listeners a little bit about this project and how it began and how it's been evolving?
Yeah. So the Syrian Design Archive began as a personal project where I started, like when I started my career as a self-taught designer, I always faced a problem when it comes to finding like resources about Arab designers, especially the Syrian ones. Even in the education system, like you see, we learn more about foreigner designers, leaving a little room for our own designers and our culture. So I think now it's improving with the work of so many initiatives and other archives. So it's getting better. And I realize how it's important to connect and learn from our culture and heritage. So when I moved to Belgium for my master's, I decided like to take this advantage and chance, and I started to research about Arabic visual identity, but it felt too big. So I decided to narrow it down to something I feel like more connected, and yeah, I can work around it. So it was like the design in Syria. I started small, like gathering stories, materials from my father, his friends, my own circle, and I discovered that was like what I discovered, it was incredible, like a treasure of design history. I didn't know it exists. So here was like the realization brought a sense of responsibility that I need to make those findings accessible to people who didn't have the opportunity that I had. And here I shared the idea with my friends, Halal Afsa and Salil Asafin, who both of them share the same passion. But like worth mentioning, like none of us has the experience of being like an archivist, but we decided to approach this project on like our way, documenting and sharing what we found. And we began on social media to see how people gonna engage, how we're gonna be committed to this work. And from there, it took like steps into like creating several sections to make it a bit easier for people to understand what we are documenting and what we have. So at this moment, we have, I think, 6 sections on social media. So it's the Syrian print archive where we're documenting everything's printable, books, cover, whatever it's printed. The Syrian type archive where we're documenting all the signage from the street, all the lettering you can find around the city. Syrian stamps, so all the stamps from Syria. Syrian media archive where we have all the lettering from and titles from the movies, TV series, ads, so everything on screens. And we have also the Syrian logo archive where we are like trying to digitize everything, like all the signage that we can find, all the logos. And lately we started the Syrian banknote section. So I think the work is still on process where we are trying to gather materials, where we're trying to understand like the design, who are the designers behind those designs, and yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah, I really encourage our listeners, our viewers to check out that talk where Kinda, you and your colleague show some visual examples of that archive as well. So again, we'll post that in the show notes. Let me pass it on to Julia, who's got some more questions connected to the theme of this season.
Yeah, Kinga, this season's main theme is design and performance. So by performance, we can interpret this in many ways. I remember that after seeing your presentation at the conference, and I remember thinking about the afterlife of your project. So the Syrian Design Archive could also be performed in other types of medium. And like, for example, a documentary film. That's what I initially thought. I am wondering if you and the other designers in the project have thought about translating all the documentation and the knowledge you've gathered in another type of medium, such as a documentary or another type. And how do you see the notion of performance translated in this work?
Yeah, I think somehow the theme finds a way to link to our archive, and we thought about like making documentaries and film for like documentary film, for example, that could offer a different dynamic to tell the stories behind the design, our designers, and the cultural shift they represent. I think that would let the audience experience the Syrian visual history in ways that feel, I think, alive, personal, or maybe had like an emotional impact. Also, we thought about like zine. We had already created one, but also like we're creating to create a different ones, like in different ways where we can make those design like accessible in like a creative way. I think also like answering the idea of performance, I think is seen of like how we are sharing the archive materials, for example, like the post, even like the exhibition, the talks. I think especially the talks are like a stage where artifacts comes to life and they are reconnecting with the audience. They are reconnecting like the audience with the Syrian design heritage. And I think this brings somehow the object to life, and letting it like to connect and also to be inspiring. I think also I can add for us, like you said, there's so many ideas to create. For example, also we thought about creating an exhibition, an installation, also where people can interact with the work and designs, and also maybe creating an accessible website for people to also like work with the materials, to be inspired, or to reuse them in ways. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question, or like, is there something like you wanna talk about it more? Yeah, I can.
No, I was just curious because I remember seeing in your presentation, and I felt very engaged about the way you told the story, almost as if it's really like a story in a movie that you don't know what's happening afterwards, and there was some adrenaline moments, I remember.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
remember. I remember. Yeah, I remember. That was like the untold stories behind the archive. Those like we
yeah,
wrote them
exactly.
in a zine. Yeah, yeah. I think that would be an interesting to create them as like I don't know, small films or yeah, in a way different than it's like written. I think that would create something different.
Yeah, it was great for me to learn more about Syrian design. I'm also like, as you were saying before about cultural heritage, I see that the project itself is very much based on the philosophy of discovering hidden knowledge and preserving it. I wonder, how do you navigate with the idea of preserving heritage, so the cultural heritage that you're documenting and the traditions behind it, but also introducing new methods and inspirations from the current and modern times?
Yeah, I think we want to let the designers and artists bring like this heritage into a modern design. I think like, for example, like historical calligraphy style might be an inspiration for a logo, or those patterns that we are collecting also can be seen in like some visual identities and some brandings or posters. I feel like, yeah, maybe also like to blend like all techniques that were used in old posters, and used in modern tools. I don't know. And I think like to give those designs maybe a new life, maybe also like workshops, interviews, and community projects. It can be like a way of people like designers and generation connect, and maybe that could help to pass the knowledge from what we gathered to what is happening now. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if I can add something more. Yeah, maybe
Oh,
I'm sorry. I just remember like also like if we made our website accessible or the materials accessible, digitizing them and let other designers from there like I don't know, work around them.
sounds great. Sounds great. And because you've gone so deep into exploring Syrian design from three different perspectives, because there are three designers working on the project, do you feel that you have any critiques about Syrian design that you would like to share with us?
I don't know if I can call it critique, but through our journey and through our documenting, we noticed like previously designers had somehow freedom to talk or work about sensitive topics, but before 2 months was like no one would dare to talk about politics or yeah, like there was a limitation. And I think any type of design need a like a freedom to flourish and to grow. So I think this is one of the things. Also, I would say, like I mentioned before, like most of the research that we had in universities or anywhere, they were like more about like the yeah Latinized or like about not about our culture. So I think that was like a lack of cherishing our heritage, maybe. But still, with all those, like you see, Syrian designers were able to create beautiful work and highlight like things from our culture and work around it. Um, what else I can add? I think the freedom, that was like the most important thing. And also during the time, like there was, know someone in the government and you have the privilege to work in specific events. So it's not like the project weren't going for someone who has more experience. It's more about like who has like the network or the accessibility for government. And I'm hoping like now maybe there will be a possibility for everyone like to share their like work and be, yeah, involved in everything that's happening.
That's great. Yeah, seems like there is more space.
Oh yeah, there will be more space. Yeah, and that's what we're excited about.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate very much the work that you guys did by bringing public consciousness of what Syrian design is, because even I was not introduced to that before, so I appreciate learning so much more about it. I'm also curious to learn, how was the process of promoting the work to expand its reach?
Mhm.
So what do you think, or even you expect, is the impact of this project in the Arab community? And what
In the
also,
Arab
what about the Western countries as well? Like if you had any specific expectation or not?
I think like promoting the Syrian archive has been a journey of like storytelling, collaboration, and the most important thing is consistency. Uh, We focus not only like to share like the materials, like you said, like you saw in the presentation. We also like wanted to tell the stories behind it, like the people and the history, the culture that is reflected in the work. So I think collaboration with the artists, designers, institute helped to reach more people. And also, I think social media and online platform made the archive accessible like globally, and it also allowed the engagement from the community as well, like I said, the workshop, the talks, and everything. And I feel like in the other board, archive has become somehow a resource of pride and inspiration. And I think it's connected people to their roots and also show the younger generation the reach of our heritage and give them like an inspiration that we can create something beautiful with our own materials, elements from our culture and the region. I think for Western audience, the archive challenge felt it was to, I think, fight the stereotyping, and I think it offer the a deeper view of Syria like as a place of creativity instead of like a conflict, and it opens. I think it opens a conversation to introduce a unique perspective and to show Syrian design, sorry, that it's fit into the global area. So I would say it's the archive. It bridge the gap between like past and present, and also between the culture. And it's made somehow. I think it's like making the Syrian design. It's something that inspiring people everywhere. If I could put it this way.
I agree. I feel very inspired, and I also like very much the fact that you were able to fight against the stereotype of what it means to be Syrian practice. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I also was wondering, because I believe that in general, speaking the same language at times may bring a sense of unity. So what do you think the Arab countries have in common when it comes to design practice? So you brought a lot, the perspective of Syrian design. I'm
Yeah.
curious to learn more if you had the chance to exchange with other professionals from other Arab countries. And what do you perceive to be the specifics, so the characteristics of Syrian design when comparing to the other countries' practices?
I think, like you said, speaking the same language does create a sense of unity and in design, especially like especially in the Arab world. And I think Arabic script plays a central role in visual identities across the region. Um, so they are like somehow shaping everything from calligraphy to modern typography, and we shared like the cultural references and historical references. Even in design, we share the same sometimes challenges. I think through the work, I would say from my own perspective, I feel like the Syrian design has its own flavor. I think it's shaped from a mix from influence from Asian civilization with the Islamic art, and you can see also, for example, in Damascus, it also like you see somehow sometimes there's the interact with the machine craft, decorational patterns, storytelling, and I feel like there's a touch of minimalism. I think that was really seen in the work of Abdeladir Arnaout, who created like so many posters that even if you don't speak the language, you can tell what is it. But when it comes to other countries, I feel like there's a difference between each country. For example, for me, like Lebanese work or like designs that comes from Lebanon, it has I think the character of like they are really bold and experimental comparing like to Syrian designs. Egyptian ones, for example, they are really the masters of like Arabic like lettering, calligraphy, and how they are combining illustration with the lettering. It's something beautiful and on another level. Um, and also, like I've been not long time ago in Morocco, and I saw also like there how you see like they're working on specific scripts and they are adding the touch of their countries, the culture they are surrounded by. So you can see like there's a mix between like the Arab, the Amazighi influence. So it's there. I think what ties us all together is how we honor the tradition while we're remaining its modern way. And each country adds its own unique touch, making the Arab design like rich, diverse, and deeply inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that comparative perspective. I wanted to refocus the question on your own cultural background. So, in addition to being Syrian, you also have Polish heritage, and now you live in Brussels, in Belgium. So, with all of these different cultural influences, can you talk about how that shapes your own work as a designer? And are there specific designers from these backgrounds that you wanted to reference and yeah, shout out about your inspiration?
Yeah, I think from my Polish side, I drawn a lot from like modernist design and principle, especially when like emphasize on minimalism, structure, and yeah, the structure. And Polish design reflects, I think, a sense of clarity and order, which is I try to capture in my work. So it's like simple, elegant, and you can see it in my work in branding or visual identity. But when it comes to my Syrian side, I think my heritage brings the rich dimension to my work, rooted like in storytelling, ornamentation, and the beauty of Arabic calligraphy. I think for me, the Arabic script is more than just a means of communication. I see it as an art form that is expressive and deeply meaningful. So in my practice, I think I can explore both of words, like merging the Polish minimalism and with the vibrance and depth of the Syrian tradition to create something different.
Tell us about where you go for inspiration from your cultural heritage and those countries.
Yeah, honestly, it depends on the project and the situation. So inspiration can come from any source. So it's all like all lettering I come across, working or traveling, music, art, even like unexpected everyday moments. So I try to stay open to anything that can might spark an idea. And you said if like I want to mention any of designers. So as a fellow designer, I admire so many, but for me in Syria, like a few of them like stand out. So I would say Abdul Arnaout, Munir Shahrani, Youssef Abdelati, and Burhan Karkatli. Each one of them like made an incredible contribution to Syrian design, from calligraphy to graphic design. And I think you can find so many artworks in our archive if you're interested to check them. On the Polish side, I think I start like lately discovering Polish designers that do designers. Their name Patrick Hadje and Ada Dzielinska. They are both of them they started a long time ago a Polish design archive, and they also like they made so many books about the Polish design, so that helped me discover the Polish side. And one of the designers that captured my attention was his name was Karol Śliwka, and he's known for the iconic signs and logos. So yeah, I think those designers I would yeah mention.
Yeah, thank you for
I'm,
those references.
I'm gonna search more about them now. I'm also curious. Thanks for sharing. Kinda, I'm wondering if you can also share a little bit of your creative process. So you've shared a lot of your experience as a graphic designer, but very much as a researcher, especially when you went to the field to learn more about everything that you could gather in Syria for the Syrian Design Archive. How do you perceive your methods to be when it comes to your creative process? Do you feel like you're more linear, non-linear, more repetitive and constant, or more exploratory in if you can share more of your ways of working.
Yeah, I would describe my creativity process as a non-linear, and it's like a constantly evolving, and it's not repetitive. Like every project, it feels like an opportunity for me to learn something new or approach a new challenge differently. Like you said, being a self-taught designer, it has shaped this mindset for me. So I've never followed a single or fixed method. I'm always open to explore and experiment. And yeah, my process depends on the nature of the project, and I think I let myself adapt and grow with each one. I think, yeah, when something sparked my curiosity, I will go all in. That means like I will attend workshop, conference, or experience that on my own. And this approach, I think it was there when I like I shifted my career from being an architect to graphic design. And in the beginning, I was like focusing more on like branding and but in like a Latinized context. But over time, I realized like the potential and the richness of Arabic design, which it was not like so strong part of my work, but it led me to experience and learn, and slowly, it is like I'm finding like my voice in this. So yeah.
So as we wrap up our conversation, Kinda, I'd love to hear your take on Syria and how the political changes there, the regime change, there's still a lot of uncertainty about how this is going to play out. But how do you think that the design industry is going to change or take advantage of the political change? Is there anything you're hopeful of?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, like there was no freedom. So with this new phase, I think the design scene has a chance to grow. And with the all like in the past, like all the restriction and like there was no freedom of a way of like it's made it harder for designer to be fully creative. But I feel like now I hope like there will be more opportunities to explore like new topics or yeah, especially culture, also social issues, and to create work that shows Syrian heritage in a modern way. And I also wish for better support in the design education with more like school workshops. I think maybe places for designers where they can share their work or have an access for resource or mentorship that will help like the young designers to build like their career. And maybe like collaborating with another designers that would, I don't know, help. And I hope like design in Syria become more seen and influential and showing the strong and potential of its people.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear. And then taking this in a personal direction, we're recording this in early February of 2025, so it's relatively early in the new year. Are there any professional challenges or goals that you have for this year that you'd like to share with our audience? And how are you growing and expanding as a designer from your end?
I think if you asked me this question last year, I would tell you I have so many goals to do, or like I have a list and I want to do it. But for this year, I'm gonna let myself like to enjoy the process, because last year I was like reaching so many things that I want to do, but I didn't have a chance to enjoy it. And even like sometimes like things become even better than what I wanted to do or like expected, but I didn't have a chance like to enjoy it. So this year I want to like, I don't have anything in my mind. Like I just want to enjoy the journey. Okay, I'm still gonna be somehow hard on myself, working hard, experimenting. But yeah, I want to enjoy the journey and see where it goes. But like one of the goals that I want to do this year, I think to launch our website for the Syrian Design Archive, it has to be done this year. So I think this is the only thing that I'm going to be, have it on my list for this year.
Yeah, that's a wonderful goal because it already exists in social media, right? But putting it on a website really allows you
Yes,
to
like we
have
want to
your
make
own
it
space.
exactly, and we want to make it accessible, because in social media you cannot like download it, or if you want to have like a we have so many also like researchers written or articles about designers, interviews. So we want to make this in one place.
So I know you've already referenced some designers who influence you, but we like to ask all of our guests for a recommendation for a piece of media. So it could be a book, a show, a movie, any medium really that you'd like to recommend to our listeners, to our viewers.
I would recommend a book that I read lately, but I didn't finish it because the book is a series, 6 books, but it's not translated yet, all of them into English. And the name of the book is The Arab of the Future. It's a graphic memoir by French Syrian illustrator. His name is Riyad Sattouf. And this book is tell the story about his childhood between Libya, France, and Syria. So this I would recommend, and I'm hoping to have like the 5 and 6 in English soon, because I want to finish the story.
Wonderful. We'll post a link to that so our listeners and our viewers can check that out for themselves. And then finally, to wrap us up, Kinda, do you have a call to action for our audience where folks can find you and your work? It could be a URL or a social media handle, whatever you'd like to do. And then we'll post that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I think on social media, so it's like Instagram, and also I have a course on Domestica, so I will send you also a link for that.
Wonderful. Kinda Ghannoum, thank you so much for joining us again on the AIGA Design Podcast and for your talk at our conference last year. We'll post links to that as well so folks can see some examples from the Syrian Design Archive. Thank you for tuning in, and to our members for making this show possible and accessible to the entire design community. I'm Lishan Huang. I'll see you next time.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.